ठीक है, चैप्टर पढ़ने वाले हैं आज। चैप्टर वन, ऑर्गेनिज्म रिप्रोडक्शन इन ऑर्गेनिज्म, एच आर सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन से सेक्सुअल। टॉपिक है सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन से सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन। टॉपिक विच आर एवरी ऑर्गेनिज्म कैन लिव ओनली फॉर अ सर्टेन पीरियड सर्टेन। You were have existed on Earth for several thousands of years. There must be some process in living organisms that ensures this continuity. Yes, we are talking about the reproduction. Sometimes that we take granted. Figure ये सब approximate life spans of organisms. Elephant, arrows, dog, butterfly, crow, banana tree, cow, parrot, crocodile, horse, fruit fly, rice plant, tortoise, banyan tree. Reproduction is defined as a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young ones offspring similar to itself. Offspring grow mature and in turn reproduce new offspring. Thus, there is a cycle of birth, growth, and health. Production enables the continuity of the species generations after generations. You will study later in chapter 5 principles of inheritance and variations, how genetic variations is created and inherited during reproduction. There is a large diversity in the biological world, and each organism has involved its own mechanism to multiply and produce offspring. The organism habitat its internal physiology and several other factors are collectively responsible for how it reproduces based on whether there is a participation of an organism or two in the process of reproduction. It is of two types when offspring is produced by a single parent with or without the involvement the gametes formations. The reproduction is sexual where and two parents opposite sex participate in the reproductive process and also involve fusions of male and female gametes. It is called reproduction. In sexual reproduction, in this method, a single individual parent is capable of producing offspring. As a result, offspring that are produced are not only identical to one another but are also exact copies of their parent. Are these offspring likely to be genetically indicial or different? The term close is used to describe such morphologically and genetically similar individual parent cell divisions in uncellular organisms. Weddings in yeast, binary fusions in amoeba. Let us see how widespread sexual reproduction is among different group of organisms. Sexual reproduction is common among single-celled organisms and in plants and animals with a relatively simple organism in protists and monorems. The organism or the parent is divided by mitosis into give rise to new individuals. In this organism, cell division itself mode of reproduction. Reproduction, reproduction structures. Two pairs condyla of penicillins birds in Hydra. Any single cell organism is produced by binary fusion. The fusion sphere is divided into hairs and each rapidly grows adult amoeba. From the same yeast, the divisions unequal and small buds are produced that remain attached entirely to the parent cell, which eventually gets separated and mature into new organisms cells under unfavorable conditions. The amoeba, which draws its pseudopodia and secretes layered hard coverings or cysts around itself. The phenomenon is termed as infestations when favorable conditions return. The infested amoeba divides by multiple fusions and produced many minutes amoeba or spores. The cyst wall bursts out and the spores are liberated in the surround mediums to grow up into many amoeba. This phenomenon is known as sporulation. Rhizium ginger, bulbil agave. पहला है आई ऑफ पोटैटो, दूसरा है राइजम ऑफ जिंजर अदरक, बुलबिल ऑफ अगेव सी लीफ पत्तियाँ ऑफ बर्ड्स ऑफ ब्रोफाइलम ब्रायोफाइलम ऑफसेट ऑफ वाटर हाइक्सिन members of the kingdom fungi and simple plants such as algae produced through a special sexual reproductive structures. The most common of these structures are zoospores that unusually are microscopic motile structures. Other common reproductive structures are Conidia, Penicillium, birds, Hydra, and Gemmules spongi. You have learned about vegetative reproductions in the plants in class 11th. What do you think in vegetative reproductions are also a type of sexual reproductions? Why do you Why do you say so? Is the terms clone applicable to the offspring spawned by vegetative productions? While in animals and other spiced organisms, to term is actually used unambiguously in plants. The term vegetative production is frequently used in plant the units of vegetative propagation, such as runner, rhizomes, sucker, rubber offset, bulb, are all capable of giving rise to new offspring. These structures are called vegetative bracteoles. Obviously, since the formations of these structures does not involve two parents, the process involved is sexual in some organisms. different modified stems of these plants. When the new plants ready vegetations buds arise from the nodes present at margins of leaves of brophyllum. This ability is fully exploited by gardeners and farms for commercial propagations of such plants. It is interesting to note that sexual reproduction is the common method of reproduction in organisms that have a relatively simple organisms like algae and fungi, and that the shift sexual method reproduction just before the onset adverse conditions. Find out how sexual reproduction enables this organism to survive during the unfavorable conditions. Which sexual reproduction favorable under such conditions. Sexual vegetative as well as sexual method modes of reproduction are excited by the higher plants. On the other hand, only sexual modes of reproduction is present in most of the animals. Sexual reproduction involve formations of the male and female gametes. Gametes, either by the same individuals or by different individuals of the opposite sex. These gametes fuse to forms of zygote, which develops to form the new organism. It an elaborate, complex, and so process and compared to sexual reproduction, which because of the fusions to make and female gametes. Production result is offspring that are identical to the parents or among themselves. A study of diverse organisms, plants, animals, fungi, so that they also greatly in extremal morphology, internal structure, and physiology. When it comes to sexual modes of reproduction, surprisingly they share a similar patterns. Let us first discuss what features are common to the diverse organisms. All organisms have to reach a certain stage of growth and maturity in their life before they can produce equally. That periods of growth is called juvenile phase. It is known as vegetative phase in plants. This phase is of variable durations in different organisms. The end of juvenile vegetative phases, which marks the beginnings of reproductive phases, can be seen easily in the higher plants when they comes to flower. How long does it take for marigolds, right? We take coconut mango plants to come to flower. In some plants where flowering occurs more than once, what would you call the intense flowering period? Juvenile or mature? Observe a few trees in your area. Do they flower during the same months, years after years? Why do you think availability of fruits like mango, apple, jackfruit, etc. is seasonal? Are there some plants that flowers throughout the years and some the others that show seasonal flowering? Plants that the animals and biennials types so clear cut vegetative reproductive and sensed phases, but in the But in the perennial species, it's very difficult to clearly define the species. A few plants exhibit unusual flowering phenomenon. Some of them, such as bamboo species, flowering only their lifetime. Generally, after 50 100 years, produces large number of fruits and die. Another plant Strawberry that's failure. Flower once in 12 years, as many of you would know, and these plants flower during September, October, during September, October 2006. Its mass flowering transfers a large tract of hilly area in Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu into blue stretches and attract a large number of tourists. In animal, the juvenile phase is followed by a morphological and physiological change. Prior to active reproductive behavior, the reproductive phases is also variable duration in different organisms. Can you list the chances in humans being a human beings that are indicative of reproductive maturity among animals? For example, but do they lay eggs all through the years, or is it a seasonal phenomena? What about the other animals like frogs and lizards? You will notice that birds living in nature lay eggs only seasonally. However, birds in captivity as in poultry farms can be made to lay eggs throughout the year. In these cases, laying the eggs not related to reproduction but is a commercial exploitation for humans' welfare. The females of a placental mammals exhibited classical senses in the activities of phases in non-primates. Mammals like cows, sheep, rats, deer, dogs, tiger, etc. such as classical senses during reproduction are called oestrus cycle. क्रिस्टल चेंजेस ड्यूरिंग जब रिप्रोडक्शन से होता है क्रिस्टल जब चेंज होता है तो प्रोडक्शन चालू से ग्रोथ और स्ट्रेस है वेयर एज इन primates monkey apes and humans it calls menstrual cycles. Many mammals, especially those living in natural wild conditions, exhibited such cycles only during the favorable seasons in their productive phases and were called seasonal breeders. Many other mammals are reproductive active throughout their reproductive phases and hence are called continuous breeders. That we all are grow old if we live long enough in something that we recognize. But what is meant by growing old? The end of reproductive phases can be considered as one of the parameters of same sense or old age. There are concomitant senses in the body like showings of metabolism etc. during these last phases of lifespan. Old age is ultimately death leads to death in both plants and animals. Hormones are responsible for the transitions between the three phases interaction between hormones and certain environmental factors regulate or the reproductive process and the associated behavioral experiences of organisms remains in sexual reproduction after attainment of maturity. All sexual reproductions organisms exhibit events and processes that have remarkable fundamental similarity, even though the structures associated with sexual reproductions are indeed very difficult. The event of sexual reproduction have a elaborate and complex, follow a regular sequence. Sexual reproduction is characterized by the fusions or fertilizations of the male and female gametes, the formations of zygotes and embryogenesis. For convenience, this sequential event may be grouped into the three distinct stages, namely the fertilizations, and the post-fertilization event. One for pre-fertilization event. This includes all the events of sexual reproduction, periods of the fusions of gametes. The two main pre-fertilization events are the gametogenesis and gametes transfer. Gamogenesis, as you are already aware, gametogenesis refers the process of formation of the two types of gametes. Male and female gametes are haploid cells. In some Sergai or two gametes are so similar in appearance that it is not possible to categorize them into male and female gametes. There are hence called gametes, isogametes, figure 1.5. Even the gametes. There are hence called homogametes, isogametes, figure. However, in our majority sexual reproduction organisms, the gametes produced are two morphologically distinct types, heterogametes. In such organisms, the male gametes is called the heteroid or sponge, and the female gametes is called the egg or ovum. Sexually reproduction in organisms generally involve the fusions of gametes, which are two different individuals. But this is not always true. From your recollections of example studies in class 11, can you identify cases where self-fertilization is observed? Of course, citing such example is plant is easy. Plant may have both male and female reproductive structures in the same plant. Bisexual 1.6 or on different plant sexual figure in several fungi and plants terms such as monothelic and monoecious are used that denote the bisexual conditions and heterothelic heterothelic and dioecious are terms used to describe asexual conditions in flowering plant. The sexual males flowered is staminate bearing stamens, while the female pistillate or bearing pistils. In some flowering plant, both male and female flowers may be present on the same individual. monoecious or on a separate individuals diseases. Some example of monoecious plants are cucurbits and coconuts, and of dioecious plants are papaya and date palms. Names the types of gametes that are formed is staminate and pistillate flower. But what about animals or individuals of all species, either male or female? Seals or other species which possess both the reproductive organs. You probably can make a list of several sexual species: earthworms, sponge, tapeworms, and leech. Typical examples of bisexual animals that possess both male and female reproductive organs and organs are hermaphrodites. Cockroach figure is an example of an asexual species. Cell division during gametes formation. Gametes in all heterogametic species are two types, namely male and female. Gametes are haploid. The parent's plant body from which they arise may be either haploid or diploid. Haploid parents produced gametes by mitotic division. Does this mean that meiosis never occur in organisms that are haploid? Carefully examines the flow charts of life cycles of ergi that you have studied in class 11 to get a suitable answer. Several organisms belonging to Monera fungi, algae, and bryophytes have haploid plant body. But in organisms belonging to petridophytes, the gymnosperms, angiosperms, and most of the animals, including human beings, the parental body is diploid. It is haploid that meiosis, the reproduction division, has to occur if a diploid body has to produce haploid gametes. सब है gametes figure. पहला है बाइसेक्सुअल एनिमल, दूसरा है यूनिसेक्सुअल एनिमल कॉकरोच, मोनोसियस प्लांट सी सी डी है डायप्टिक प्लांट, नीला फीमेल डेलस प्लांट. Chromosomes numbers of mucloids, diploids, twins, and gametes haploid of some organisms. Fill in the blank spaces. 46 gamete only 3, housefly 12, rat 42, only 1 dog 78, 39, fruit fly 8, 4, rice 24, 12, potato 48, 60. In diploid organisms, specialized cell myocytes, gametes, and other cells undergo meiosis. At the end of meiosis, only the set of chromosomes gets incorporated into each gametes. Carefully study tables. The diploid and haploid chromosomes numbers of organisms. Is there any relationship in the numbers of chromosomes of mycocytes and gametes. Gamete transfers after the formations, male and female gametes must be physically brought together to facilitate fusions. Have you ever wondered how the gametes meet? In a majority of organisms, gametes in motiles and the female's gametes in stationary sections are new fungi. Fungi are algae and algae in which both types of gametes are motiles. There is the need for a medium through which the male gametes move in several simple plants like algae, brophytes, and petridiophytes. Water is the medium through which these gametes transfers take places. A large number of the male gametes, however, fail to reach the female gametes to compensate this loss of female gametes during transport. Number of male gametes produced several thousand times the numbers of female gametes produced. In seed plants, pollen grains are the carriers of male gametes. Ovule have the edge pollen grains produced in anthers, therefore have to be transferred to the stigma before it can lead to fertilization. Figures bisexual self-fertilizing plants, e.g. transference of pollen grains to the stigma. It's relatively easy and anthers and stigma are locked close to each other. Pollen grains soon after there are threads come in contact with the stigma, but this cross pollinating plants during dialysis plants, the specialized event called the pollination facilitates transfers of pollen grains to the stigma. Pollen grains germinate on the stigma and the pollen tubes carrying the male gametes reach the ovule. Animals since male and female gametes are formed in special mechanisms. Form gametes transfers, successful transfers and coming together of gametes is essential for the most critical event in sexual reproduction, say the fertilization. Fertilization is perhaps the fusion of gametes. This process called stigma results in the formation of a diploid zygote. The term fertilization is also often used for this process. The terms syngamy and fertilization are frequently used of inner sense gambling. What would happen if syngamy does not occur? However, it has to be mentioned here that in some organisms like rotifers, honeybees, and even some lizards and the birds, turkey, and the female gametes undergoes developments to form new organisms without fertilization. This phenomenon is called parthenogenesis. Where dog Syngamy occurs in the most organisms such as majority of large and fishes as well as well as amphibians. Syngamy occurs in the central bodies water outside the body of the organism. This types of gametic fusion is called external fertilization. Organisms exhibiting external fertilization, so great synchrony between the sexes and release a large numbers of gametes into the surrounding mediums. Water in orders of enhance the exchange of syngamy. This happens in the bony fishes and frogs where a large number of springs are produced. Measured disadvantage in that the offsprings are extremely vulnerable to predators, threatening their survival of the adulthood. Many terrestrial organisms belonging to fungi hires the animals such as reptiles, birds, mammals, and in a majority of plants, phytes, petroids, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Syngamy occurs inside the body of the organism. Hence, the process is called internal fertilization. In all these organisms, egg is formed inside its female body where they fuse with the male gametes. In organisms, exciting internal fertilization, the male gametes is motile and has no ribs. The eggs, in order to fuse with it, in this event, though the numbers of sperms produced is very large, there is a significant reproduction in the numbers of eggs produced in seeds plants. However, the non-motile male gametes are carried to male gametes by pollen tubes. Those fertilizations event is a sexual reproduction after the formations of zygote are called post-fertilization events. Formations of the diploid zygote is universal in all sexual reproduction organisms. In organisms with external fertilizations, zygote spawns in external mediums, typically water areas. In those meetings, internal fertilization zygote is found inside the body of the organism. The development of the zygote depends on the types of life cycles the organism has and environment it is exposed to. In organisms belonging to fungi and algae, zygote develops a thick walls that is resistant to the glaciations and damage. It undergoes a period to rest before in class 11. Zygote divides by meiosis to form haploid spores that grow into haploid individuals. Consult your class 11th book and find out what kind of development takes place in the zygote in organisms with diploentic and hyplodiploentic life cycles. 11th में दिया है. Zygote is the virtual link that ensures continuity of species between organisms of one generation and tests every sexually production organism, including human beings like single cells. The zygote embryogenesis refers to the process development of embryo from the zygotes. During the embryogenesis, zygote undergoes several divisions, mitosis, and cell differentiation. While cell division increases the number of cells in the developing embryo, cells differentiations help groups of cells to undergo certain modifications to form specialized tissues and organs. To form an organism. You have studies about the process of cell division and differentiations in the previous class. Previous class. Animals and categorized into the oviparous, oviparous and viviparous based on whether the developments of the zygote takes places outside the body of the female parents or inside whether they lay fertilized unfertilized eggs or give birth to young ones. In oviparous animals like reptiles and birds, the fertilized egg covered by hard carriers cells are laid in the safe incubation. Young comes hatch out. On the other hand, in viviparous animals, majority mammals hatch out. On the other hand, including human beings. The zygote develops into a young one inside the body of the female organism. After attaining certain significance, are deleted out of the body of the female organism. Because proper embryonic care of protections, the chances of cereals of young ones is greater in a viviparous organism. Viviparous organisms. In a flowering plant, the zygote is formed inside the ovule after the fertilization. The sepals, petals, and stamens of the flower withers and fall off. Can you name a plant in which the sepals remain attached? The pistil however remains attached to the plant. The zygote develops into the embryo and the ovule develop into the seed. The ovary develops into the fruit which develops a thin wall is called pericarp. That is protective in functions figures pointed and after dispersal this buds seeds germinate under favorable conditions to produce new plant. So few plants of sowing seeds is protective pericarpi. मटर गाय सीड से मटर प्रोडक्शंस assembly देखिए assembly reproduction enables a species to live generations after generations. Reproductions in organisms can be broadly classified into sexual and sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction does not involve the fusions of gametes. It is common. It is common in organisms that are have a relatively simple organization such as the fungi. Algae and some invertebrates animals. The offspring formed by sexual reproduction are identical and can be referred to as clones. Zoospores, Conidia, etc. are the most common sexual structures formed in several algae and fungi, buddings and gamule. Formations are the common sexual method seen in the lower animals, prokaryotes, and unicellular organisms, reproductive sexual Y cell divisions or binary fissions of the parent cells in several aquatic and terrestrial species of angiosperms structures such as runners, rhizomes, suckers, tubers, offset, etc. are capable of giving rise to new offspring. These methods of sexual reproduction is generally referred to as vegetative propagation. Reproductions involve the formation and fusions of gametes. It is a complex and slower process as compared to sexual reproduction. Most of the higher animals almost entirely of sexual method. Events of sexual reproduction may be categorized into pre-fertilization, fertilizations, and post-fertilization events. Pre-fertilization events include gametogenesis and gamete transfers, while post-fertilization events include the formations of zygote and embryogenesis. Organisms may be bisexual or sexual in plants is varied, particularly in angiosperms due to the productions of diverse types of flowers. Plants can be defined as monoecious and dioecious. Flowers may be bisexual gametes and haploids in natures as usually direct produce of meiotic transfers of male gametes is an essential in sexual reproduction. It is relatively easy in bisexual organisms. In unisexual animals, occur by copulations or simultaneous relays. In angiosperms, a special process called pollination ensures transfers of pollen grains which carry the pollen grains to the stigma. Syngamy fertilization occur between the male and female gametes. Syngamy may occur either externally outside the body of organism or inside the body. Syngamy leads to formation of the specialized cell called zygote. The process of development of embryo from the zygote is called embryogenesis. In animals, the zygote starts developing soon after its production and care the better in viviparous organisms. Flowering plants after fertilization develops into fruits and ovules matured into seeds. Inside the mature seeds is the progenitors of the next generations, the embryo synthesizes body productions essential organisms. This is the better mode of production of sexual life, which is of experience formed while bisexual reproductions referred to any clone unwanted sexual reproductions better chances of survival while essential distinguish between natural and irregular productions, while regenerative productions also play the driver in production. Vegetative propagations due to situables example define sustenance process.
you.
All
Lohan
living
inang
organisms
rajin